I just want to comment a bit on some of the developments of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. And the video I made on that is actually my most viewed video so far. I think that shows how much interest there is in this case. It transpires that this is actually the worst aviation accident or disaster of any kind in about 10 years. The last time there was one on this scale was 2003 in Iran. The last time there was an aviation accident with more fatalities, 239 people. I've just watched a video that showed relatives of victims of the plane, one of them at least, throwing a bottle of water at Malaysia Airlines officials. I think this is unfortunate, and I think it's wrong to blame officials. I really do think these people are trying their level best to do what they can, and certainly it seems they've employed massive resources to the area to try and find where this plane may be. There's a lot of strange things going on. Relatives have spoken about mobile phones still ringing, QQ still going unanswered, which suggests that the plane isn't underwater, because those sort of things couldn't be. Obviously there'd be no reception underwater if the plane has crashed underwater. I don't want to be too judgmental of the victims, and by no means is that the intention of this video, because they're obviously suffering enormously and they're under huge emotional pressure. But I think it's wrong to blame the officials. For one thing, their colleagues are among those missing. They could have friends on that flight who are also among those missing. And they're under enormous pressure. They've got the eyes of the world watching them right now. I'm not going to judge the people who are doing it, the relatives, for unleashing this sort of frustration. I'm not going to judge them for doing it, because maybe I would be the same under the circumstances. But I still think it's wrong. I think it's wrong to blame officials who are simply trying their best. What the relatives want is for them to produce the plane with everyone alive and well on it. Sadly, that's just not the case. So it's a tragic situation all round. And I've said this before, I think it must be one of the hardest jobs to be the person who has to speak to relatives in a major transport incident like this. I say incident because the possibility of terrorism is still being discussed. The issue of the 2 stolen passports, the 2 guys who are believed to have taken those are Iranian nationals, but this is an important thing. They're not being called terrorists. They may have been, it's speculated that they were trying to find asylum in Europe, so there's no evidence that they were terrorists. But there is new details emerging that the plane has turned around. I would say that there needs to be some consistency in terms of how Malaysia Airlines are relaying information to relatives. Not necessarily information, because they can only go with what they have, but at least some consistency. And someone made a fair point on a thread. They said that it's confusing to have different officials say different things. I think they should have one PR person. That would need to be a very tough-skinned person, because they have been facing quite a lot of abuse in recent days over the handling of this case. But from what I see, they're trying their level best. They've employed, it looks like, the entire Malaysian Navy to try and find these vessels, to try and find the remains. And I can't help but think some of this is nationalism coming into play, because the waters where the plane is supposed to have gone down is a disputed region, and China and its neighbours have had territorial disputes in recent years. But I think it would be tragic if that politicised this tragedy. So the Chinese authorities, of course, they're under pressure from Chinese citizens to do what they can to put pressure on the authorities to do everything in their power to find the plane. But I don't think China should politicize it, or at least, and I'm not saying China is, but I think the Chinese authorities should recognise that the Malaysians are doing their level best. So it's wrong to say that Malaysia isn't trying here. Malaysia's not a major country, and from what I see, I mean in terms of it's not got a major military. It's not a superpower. You know, it's trying its level best to do what it can under the circumstances. I don't know how this thing's going to turn out. If there was an explosion on the flight, then it would be conceivably hard to find wreckage, because it would just, you know, I hope no one who is directly involved in this is watching this video, because I don't want to upset or offend anyone. That's absolutely not the intention of this video. But I made a video on the incident. It's already got almost 2,000 views, so I'm making this update because I think people are interested in it. I just think people need to be understanding in these situations. I'm not judging the relatives. I know they're going through emotional pain right now, and they're frustrated. They want information. It's a human reaction, but I don't think it's right to blame the officials, who after all have lost colleagues. Don't forget it's a Malaysia Airlines flight. Cabin and crew are on there as well. It isn't just passengers. Cabin and crew have also perished, and that could be their friends, colleagues as well. So, you know, there'll be people who are also thinking about their family and friends who are crew members. So it's not just a case of the passengers, and China's not the only country to be impacted by this. So it's just a tragedy all round, and I think people need to, those of us outside the situation, need to be not so judgmental. And I'm not going to lecture people directly involved. I'm just not going to do that. But I think it's unfortunate that this happens, that officials are blamed when they're trying their level best. This is the tragedy here, that it's the human factor, you know. I'd hate to have their job right now. And I've always had a lot of sympathy with people who are in that situation. It's the same if there's a major train derailment or something. To be the officials directly involved, whether representing the company or a transport minister, that sort of thing, it would be a very, very stressful job right now, immensely. But my heart also goes out to the relatives who must be going through hell right now. So it's a tragedy all around. Let's still not rush to any speculation, any judgment. We just don't know, and it might be years before we know the truth about this case. That's just my thoughts on the latest developments.